It began as just another closed-door meeting, but when Princess Beatrice cleared her throat and asked one chilling question, the atmosphere shifted. By the time she finished speaking, every royal eye was on Camilla, and no one came to her defense. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. There was nothing particularly unusual about the gathering. Windsor had hosted hundreds like it before senior royals assembled in private, aides dismissed, hushed tones and carefully curated agendas. But that morning, something unspoken hovered in the air. The topic on the table was supposedly routine, a recalibration of roles for the upcoming season of public engagements. Camilla was seated confidently, Charles beside her, with William, Edward and Beatrice rounding out the inner circle. For most of the session, voices remained measured until Beatrice, who had rarely spoken in such forums, leaned forward and calmly asked a single pointed question. Whose side have you really been on? The words didn't need clarification. They cut like glass. Eyes darted between Beatrice and Camilla. What followed was not a denial, not even a reaction of shock, but silence. Cold, thick silence that seemed to swallow the room. Beatrice didn't raise her voice. Her tone, according to one source present, was heartbreakingly composed. She recounted subtle but undeniable incidents, Camilla's rumoured interference in private matters, her past remarks that undercut other family members, the pattern of quiet disruption masked behind diplomacy. These were not personal attacks. This was a reckoning. Charles, normally quick to mediate, reportedly sat frozen. He didn't come to Camilla's defense. Neither did William, whose clenched jaw and unreadable stare betrayed deeper emotions. The Queen Consort, who had long commanded this room, looked visibly rattled for the first time in years. No rebuttals. No attempts at redirection. Just the sound of Beatrice's carefully chosen words hanging in the air, shifting the balance of power in real time. By the end of her address, there was no mistaking the message. Beatrice hadn't come for a fight, she'd come for accountability. But to understand why Beatrice dared to challenge the Queen Consort in front of the Crown's inner circle, we have to revisit the fractures buried deep beneath the surface. For months, whispers had circulated through the palace corridors. Little things, missed calls, conflicting narratives, leaks to the press. Beatrice hadn't forgotten them, and she had quietly connected the dots. What the public saw was polished appearances and carefully curated smiles, but behind palace walls, the tension had been simmering for far longer than most dared to admit. Camilla's influence, though cloaked in ceremonial subtlety, had been quietly exerting pressure in places that mattered. There had been press briefings where Camilla's tone appeared oddly misaligned with Charles's previous statements, moments dismissed at first as coincidence, but which Beatrice began to catalogue in silence. Aides noticed inconsistencies. Statements subtly adjusted. Then came the leaks. A tabloid piece questioning Beatrice's readiness to take on more responsibility. Another poking fun at her supposed absence from key royal events. No names were ever attached, but the tone was unmistakable, undermining, calculated, and with just enough inside knowledge to narrow suspicion. Beatrice remembered how her wedding, already delayed and reshaped by circumstance, had met sudden resistance from unnamed quarters, with scheduling conflicts and royal diaries suddenly unavailable. She didn't confront it then, but her mother did. Fergie, once exiled and now tentatively re-accepted, had been blunt. Watch the Queen Consort. Her loyalty isn't always where it should be. At the time, it felt like overreach, but over time, that warning became a lens. Camilla remained cool and measured in public, but behind closed doors, she was steering conversations, casting shadows where light was needed. In contrast, Beatrice's relationship with William began to strengthen two future-facing royals aligned on modernizing the monarchy. And it didn't go unnoticed. Sources whispered that Camilla had grown wary of Beatrice's increasing proximity to William's vision. So, Beatrice did what no one expected. She waited. She listened. And she built a case not with confrontation, but with facts, intent, and timing. Her silence wasn't passivity, it was strategy. And while Beatrice watched in silence, Camilla continued to move with the certainty of someone untouchable until the moment came to prove otherwise. The private council wasn't ceremonial, it was where the true chess pieces of the monarchy were moved. And for years, Camilla had claimed her place at the table. She didn't expect to be questioned. The royal family's public engagements may play out beneath the glare of cameras and tradition, but the true decisions, the real battles for power, unfold behind closed doors, far from the public eye. That's where the private council comes in. Untelevised, unofficial, but undeniably powerful. It's a rare circle, carefully selected, operating beyond ceremony. It's where strategy is born, optics are molded, and family fractures are either mended or deepened. For years, Camilla had occupied her seat with quiet command, not as an observer but as a force. While officially consort, she had in many ways become the monarch's closest advisor, particularly during crises. Charles leaned on her input during the fallout of Harry's departure. She played a key role in crafting responses to scandal. And when whispers emerged questioning the monarchy's direction, Camilla's voice had often been the one echoed in official statements. But behind the polished surface, there was unrest. Younger royals, especially Beatrice and William, had grown increasingly unsettled, not by Camilla's presence, but by her grip. Reports surfaced that Camilla wasn't just advising Charles, she was influencing how the public saw the rest of the family. Press leaks, sudden shifts in narrative focus, calculated absences from engagements. These weren't random. According to insiders, Camilla had mastered the unspoken art of shaping perception. And yet, her power was never discussed aloud until now. Beatrice, long underestimated, began to see the imbalance not as a quirk of royal life, but as a threat to the integrity of the institution itself. In private briefings, she noticed how Camilla's language often excluded key players. In moments of strategic planning, the Queen Consort's gaze never sought Beatrice's opinion. That silence, repeated over time, became louder than any words. But the most damning realization came when Beatrice saw that Camilla's influence didn't just extend to strategy, it bent the very room around her. What was meant to be a shared council had become a shadow court. The question was no longer whether Camilla was too powerful, it was whether anyone would ever say so aloud. And when Beatrice spoke, it wasn't just a challenge to Camilla, it was a line drawn in the sand, daring the monarchy to choose. No one spoke for a full 10 seconds. In the royal world, that's an eternity. Beatrice had asked her question. Camilla, for the first time in years, didn't have an answer ready. The silence that followed was not accidental, it was seismic. Camilla, who had long mastered the art of deflection, found herself momentarily exposed. The room, once predictable in its power dynamics, had shifted. Camilla tried to summon the poise that had seen her through years of whispers and suspicion. But this wasn't a press encounter or a garden party where smiles could bury dissent. This was the private council where masks fall and loyalties are tested. Her voice, when it returned, was softer than usual. She attempted to pivot, to steer the conversation back toward logistical concerns, upcoming public engagements, anything to restore structure to a meeting that had just been shattered. But the damage was done. Charles, whose instinct had always been to shield her from institutional criticism, remained frozen. His eyes didn't move toward his wife, nor did they settle on Beatrice. He simply stared forward, the weight of decades of choices pressing down harder than ever before. Edward and Sophie sat stone still, their faces unreadable. William didn't look away from Camilla, nor did he speak, but the message was clear. He wasn't rushing to her defense. The room had turned cold, and not just from discomfort. Staffers later said it felt like time stopped. For Beatrice to raise the issue was one thing, but for no one to counter it. That was unprecedented. Sensing the room slipping away from her, Camilla finally responded, but not with answers. She offered reassurances, a vague reaffirmation of duty and service. It landed flat. Beatrice, calm but deliberate, spoke again. This time she didn't accuse. She explained. She connected her concern not to grievance, but to principle. Loyalty, she said, was the crown's invisible thread. And when that thread was frayed, everyone suffered. The air thickened with tension as the Queen Consort sat quietly absorbing the indictment not of her intentions, but of her place in the room. The meeting didn't continue. No further agenda points were raised. Without fanfare, it was adjourned, abruptly. Staff sources say that decision came not from Charles, but from a silent mutual understanding. There would be no repairing the moment in real time. Camilla left first, her exit noted but not followed. The others dispersed slowly, the gravity of what had just occurred sinking in. But Camilla wasn't going to leave without a fight, and what she did next turned quiet tension into full-blown crisis. Within 24 hours, Camilla made her move. A carefully timed leak, a pointed public appearance, and whispers of Beatrice's immaturity. The Queen Consort was not backing down. The silence that lingered after the private council was broken not by reconciliation but retaliation. Camilla, wounded yet unwilling to retreat, launched a quiet but calculated counter-offensive. Within hours, royal reporters, known for their palace access, began releasing subtle but unmistakable narratives. Camilla, the ever-steady consort, had been unjustly cornered. Headlines defended her unwavering service, praised her resilience under pressure, and reframed the council meeting as a moment of misunderstanding sparked by youthful emotion. Privately, her aides were far less diplomatic. Sources claimed Camilla believed Beatrice had been manipulated, pushed forward by invisible hands with an agenda of their own. Some even hinted William's growing alliance with Beatrice had inspired the ambush, but Camilla wasn't only speaking behind closed doors. She appeared, alone, at a regional engagement in full royal form, smiling, poised, and deliberately unbothered. No mention was made of the council, no clarification offered, but the timing was unmistakable and the message was clear. She wasn't fading quietly. What followed was a digital war erupting in real time. On social media, factions took form. The Loyalists, staunch defenders of Camilla, citing her years beside Charles, rose in opposition to the Reformists' supporters of Beatrice, William, and a monarchy they viewed as overdue for change. Hashtags emerged, debates turned venomous, and in the background, Camilla's allies leaked claims of Beatrice being too emotional, too ambitious, not ready. Meanwhile, long-favoured columnists began publishing op-eds that seemed eerily aligned, painting the Queen Consort as the true glue of the monarchy, while conveniently suggesting Beatrice had allowed personal grievances to cloud royal duty. The tone wasn't just defensive, it was confrontational. Camilla wasn't pleading for space, she was demanding loyalty. Those within the palace recognized the strategy. This was a classic play from the old court: reclaim control of the narrative, isolate the challenger, and remind the public where the power still sat. But for every op-ed, there was a rebuttal. For every photo of Camilla smiling solo, there was another of Beatrice and William together, composed and gaining quiet support. But this wasn't just about public image, it was about trust, and the monarchy couldn't afford another fracture. Charles had watched in silence. But now, the crown was at risk of internal collapse. In a rare act of personal intervention, the king summoned the council and made a choice. The tipping point had come. With whispers turning to roars and palace unity on the verge of disintegration, King Charles took the most decisive step of his reign. He called for an emergency private council not in days, but within hours. The summons was short, the guest list shorter. Camilla, notably, was absent. And her absence said more than any statement could. This was not about appearances, it was about preservation. The monarchy had survived decades of storms, but the fractures now ran deeper than public perception. They threatened the very institution itself. At the table sat William, calm but resolute, Beatrice, poised and direct, Edward and Sophie, quiet pillars of duty. The discussion wasn't drawn out, but it was intense. Those present later described the mood as grave, focused, and inevitable. William didn't mince words, he spoke of optics, of trust, and the need for a future-facing royal household. Beatrice didn't gloat. She emphasized the difference between loyalty and legacy. And Charles listened, not as a father, not as a husband, but as a sovereign. In the room where secrets were usually protected, a different kind of decision was forged. One not rooted in tradition, but in sheer survival. The phrase Charles used, according to multiple insiders, was chilling in its clarity. This is duty over dynasty. And with that, the final choice was made. Camilla would step down from her role in the private council indefinitely. It wasn't framed as a punishment, nor was it positioned as exile. The palace later released a carefully worded statement describing it as a strategic realignment to support a generational transition. But those who understood the palace's coded language knew exactly what it meant. Camilla's grip on internal strategy had been broken, and the queen consort, once the quiet power behind the curtain, had been pulled from the inner circle she fought so hard to claim. For Camilla, the exile was more than symbolic. It shattered the foundation of her influence. There was no public announcement, no cameras, no titles stripped. But behind palace walls, Camilla packed up and left the room she once ruled. It happened in silence, no ceremony, no final toast, just the sound of doors closing on an era that had been defined by quiet dominance. Camilla, once the unseen strategist behind the king's most delicate decisions, quietly instructed her aides to begin removing personal effects from her private council chamber. Framed photos, handwritten notes, briefing folders with her distinct annotations gone in a matter of hours. The room she once treated as a command post for royal influence was stripped of her presence as swiftly as her authority had been. Her name no longer appeared on the upcoming strategy briefings. Her calendar, once filled with weekly planning sessions and confidential meetings, was emptied like a cleared battlefield. Close aides, some of whom had stood by her for decades, reportedly wept in frustration. They hadn't just lost their position, they'd lost their purpose. One described it, tearfully, as a betrayal by the very house she helped hold together. Yet Camilla issued no denials, no rebuttals. Her team was given one clear instruction: no comment. And from the palace press office, silence echoed louder than words. In the days that followed, Charles made no effort to be seen beside her. He cancelled one event and attended two others, both flanked by William and Beatrice. The message, though unspoken, could not have been clearer. Camilla's removal from the private council had become a de facto exile from the monarchy's strategic inner workings. And then came the final subtle twist: Beatrice was officially added to select council conversations. A move that signalled not only confidence but succession. What had begun as a confrontation had transformed into a power shift, one that spoke to the future more than the past. Camilla had left the room she once ruled, but the monarchy hadn't collapsed. It had adapted. But what came next was not vengeance from Beatrice. It was something far more powerful. She didn't gloat. She didn't claim a crown. Beatrice simply showed up quietly, purposefully, and with the calm of someone who knew the weight of what she'd just changed. There were no grand declarations, no veiled jabs, no polished press conferences, just one appearance, unassuming, yet seismic. Princess Beatrice, once relegated to the quieter corridors of the royal institution, emerged not as a rebel, but as a reformer. Standing beside Prince William at a children's charity event, she carried not just her royal title, but the full weight of a silent revolution. Gone was the hesitation. In its place stood a woman the press instantly dubbed the monarchy's new moral compass. This wasn't about status or strategy, it was about substance. Reporters covering the event noted how children clung to her, how she listened without pretense, how she walked like someone who understood legacy as a responsibility, not a reward. The public response was instant and thunderous. Social media swelled with praise, hashtags erupted overnight, and for the first time in years, the royal family had a new figure the people were choosing to believe in, not out of tradition, but trust. Quietly, behind the scenes, a moment of unexpected clarity surfaced. Charles, speaking to an aide and unaware of a live microphone nearby, offered a phrase more powerful than any official statement. She was right. That alone signalled what courtiers had begun to accept Beatrice's actions had not only been justified, they had been necessary. Soon after, she issued a rare personal statement. It was brief but stirring. "Legacy," she wrote, "is built not on silence but on service, not on comfort but on truth." In the shadow of this moment, Camilla announced she would be stepping away from public duties temporarily, citing rest and reflection. But behind the palace's veiled language was a truth no longer ignorable. There had been a reckoning, and Camilla had lost her place in the room where real power now gathered. What Beatrice had done was not a coup, not a campaign, but a courageous correction. And as the monarchy stepped into its next chapter, one truth echoed through the palace. Loyalty isn't given by title, it's earned by courage. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.